Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the cottage. Normally, I do a little more preparation, but today we're just going to jump into it because we're on kind of a time crunch. And we're doing something a little different today. We're going to take on more of the conservative side of things. And when I can't say conservative, boy, I mean it. First of all, like the video if you enjoy this kind of stuff and subscribe to the channel to let the algorithm know that. And I don't know, maybe share it somewhere. That would be awesome. Thank you so much. Let's go see what we got going on.
I'm here with my good friend Marissa, and today we're going to talk to you about a topic that's really important to both of us. That is veils. I started wearing a veil 4 years ago, and it wasn't at a Latin mass. It wasn't at a traditional mass. It was actually at a charismatic retreat that I went on. And so I'm not actually sure what that is. This was sort of a traditional practice until much later. Marissa, when did you start wearing your veil?
Okay, so I got my veil a year ago, but I actually didn't start wearing it until this past summer.
Okay, so both of those stories are a lot of fun, right? That girl started doing it without anyone telling her what it meant. Why? And boy, let's let Marissa tell her story.
So today we wanted to come on here and share with you some of the theological, practical, and spiritual reasons why we think that you should veil and why we were convinced to start veiling.
They don't actually give any reasons at all, though, except for one Bible citation, which is, I actually did a little research for this video. And it's really fun.
Ourselves.
They're Catholic. These girls are Catholic. Come on.
If you're not familiar, before the Second Vatican Council, it was very common. It was actually required for women to cover their heads in some way. So women could wear mantillas or different styles of veils, or they could wear hats, that sort of thing. And
in
after
church.
The Second Vatican Council, for reasons that we'll discuss later, that practice fell out of use. But today, it's actually becoming more
Jackie
popular,
Kennedy,
especially among young Catholics and young traditional Catholics.
Which I think is interesting. You know, these are young women, right? They're definitely in our wheelhouse as feminists, right? And they're going to go on to tell us here in a minute that they really have no idea why they're doing what they're doing.
So when I started wearing a veil, I had no idea of the history of this practice. I knew that it had been done before. I didn't realize that it was kind of making a statement. I didn't realize that it was a partisan issue. So a couple days ago, I was actually reflecting on when I began veiling and how I began to run into certain prejudices that people had about veiling. And so...
Yeah, these are not prejudices. These are ideas based on observation in a lot of cases, okay? Because, you know, especially we in Western countries have certain negative associations with veils and face coverings and that kind of thing. Okay, you know, I mean, I don't know how much of the last 20 years you've actually gotten to experience yourself, but it's been a fun ride. It's been really interesting, and a lot of it has involved some visuals of, you know, covered women. Okay, so that's just sort of upsetting as a visual, I think, for some people, and that might be a prejudice. But again, it's based on observation, okay? And just, you know, me personally, the only thing that makes me interesting is my red hair. If you cover my hair, I'm just another chubby white girl. This girl doesn't really still understand they're not just prejudices. It's like these ideas are, we've been over this.
I had no idea that I would be considered judgmental or rigid or something like that for wearing a veil, but that was sort of the reaction that I started to get from priests and from other Catholic friends. I was the kind of person who just jumped into veiling and dealt with the consequences.
It sounds like she ignored them, though, doesn't it?
Later. But for Marissa, it was a little different. Yeah. Do you want to talk about what qualms you had about veiling?
Yeah. Okay. Should I go this? Yes. So when I first saw people veiling, it was when I first came to St. Thomas. Emily and I lived right across the hall from each other. We went to Mass together, and so she started wearing a veil freshman year. And so I saw her doing that. I saw a couple of my friends doing it, and I was like, okay, like that's cool. I didn't really understand it, and I was like, all right, they can do that.
They still
not for
don't.
me. So
There's the Virgin Mary.
Emily and I became roommates, and so we got closer. And I don't really know like
Everybody
how it
loves
came
her,
up.
right?
Maybe it's just because we were around each other a lot more, but I started thinking about veiling, and I also other people started talking about veiling to me, and people would ask like, oh, like why don't you veil?
Okay, so first of all, this is social pressure, the very essence of social pressure, right? Secondly, the use of veil as a verb. I don't know, not used to it, rubbing me the wrong way.
Or like your friend's veil. So I started thinking about it more, and then last year, I think it was like last December, I went as far as like actually buying a veil, and I still didn't really know why. I was just kind of like, all right, like this seems like
Okay, so like, where is she buying this? Like the student union at her Catholic college? Because it really just looks like a large fancy handkerchief, does it not?
a very like reverent thing to do. And so I had a veil for the longest time, and sometimes I would wear it like if it felt right. Other times I wouldn't. And I think like my biggest issue was I felt like I was being judged by people because at St. Thomas, not very many people wore veils, so I kind of felt uncomfortable. But I would go to Latin Mass, and there I felt comfortable wearing it because everyone wore it. So I was kind of like going back and forth for a long time. And then I did that for a couple
So her culture is giving her mixed messages, and she's just trying to figure out what she's supposed to do. Poor thing.
months. And then Emily and I went to Italy, and I was still like, I didn't wear it all the time in Italy.
Not at first.
Yeah, not at first. Like I would kind of
Not
pick and
at
choose
first.
to wear it. But then over the summer, this past summer, that's when I started wearing it consistently. And I think it's just
Why?
because I started really reflecting on it more. So I started realizing how beautiful it was to wear a veil, and I really felt like God was calling me to start doing it consistently.
Okay, is that reflecting? No, I feel like that's just like letting the social pressure sink in and be absorbed right into your mental workings. They went to Italy. I mean, come on. It's Catholic Central. Come on. If you're going to find conservative Catholics.
Do you feel like you were pressured into buying a veil?
Oh no. So pressure probably isn't the right word.
Why not? That sounds like a whole lot of social pressure from a whole lot of people. Soft pressure. It's not like they, dragged her to the store or shoved it on her head. But she sure felt like she needed to do it, and she has no idea why.
I think there was a lot of influences, just like a lot of people that I knew were doing it, and I saw how beautiful it was. So even though I didn't fully understand it at the time, it was something that I chose to do on my own.
So
Okay. But like, you can't give consent to something that you don't understand, right? That's why children can't sign contracts.
This veiling has a history that goes all the way back to the Jewish tradition. But for us Catholics, the scriptural basis for veiling.
All right, before we get into that real quick, it actually goes all the way back to the ancient Assyrians. So, a little further back than that. I'll link the article that I wrote about this in the description box below. Because the Greeks adopted it from the Assyrians, who used it as basically like fancy women would sort of cover themselves, as like virtue signaling. And the Greeks adopted it for their just terror of women's bodies. They're the ones that actually invented what we call the burqa. I'm not going to try and pronounce the Greek word for it. It's in the article, which I'll link below. So you can't blame this one on the Jews. Let's see what the Bible says.
Comes from 1 Corinthians chapter 11. So, Marissa, can you please read it for us?
Yes, I can. All right, so 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 4 says, any man who prays or prophesies with his head covered dishonors his head, but any woman who prays or prophesies with her head unveiled dishonors her head. It is the same as if her head were shaven. For if a woman will not veil herself, then she should cut off her hair. But if
Why? What?
it is disgraceful for a woman to be shorn or shaven, let her wear a veil.
So these are really
So that's all just a given, is it?
strong words. And how many of you have
Strong
ever
words.
heard, like a priest preach about this verse in Mass?
I don't. I've only been to a few Catholic masses. I have Catholic friends. Okay, this is not anti-Catholic. I just, you should think about these big life choices you make before you make them, before you dedicate yourself to this stuff. Okay, before you get yourself and your entire life embroiled up in this. How? Why would you do that without even understanding what you're doing? I would strongly caution any young woman before she goes and does a thing like that. Secondly, let's go look at this Bible passage. Fun. Every man who prays or prophesies with his head covered dishonors his head. This is the New International Version, because I'm not fiddling with all that ancient, funky, medieval language. I'm not doing it. Let's see. But every woman who prays or prophesies with her head uncovered dishonors her head. It is the same as having her head shaved. For if a woman does not cover her head, she might as well have her hair cut off. But if it is a disgrace for a woman to have her hair cut off or her head shaved, then she should cover her head. Again, why? Not remarked upon. We're going to go this direction instead. A man ought not to cover his head, since he is the image and glory of God, but woman is the glory of man. Excuse you. For man did not come from woman, but woman from man. What? We're in an upside down world today. No. Man literally comes from woman. And I think that this total lie right there might point us in the direction of the core of all this nonsense. Where it all goes back to, because they really, really, really don't like that, do they? It is for this reason. Oh no, wait. Neither was man created for woman, but woman for man. Personally, I don't think either of those is true. Regardless, woman is created for man. Therefore, she is to cover her head. It is for this reason that a woman ought to have authority. For this reason that a woman ought to have authority over her own head because of the angels. What? If anyone understands what that means, please do let me know in the comments. What? It is for this reason that a woman ought to have authority over her own head because of the angels. Period. Nevertheless, in the Lord, woman is not independent of man, nor is man independent of woman. Fair enough. For as woman came from man, so also man is born of woman. Yes, but everything comes from God. Like, this sounds like a fever dream. What? But the best part is Corinthians was written by Saint Paul, in his letters to various people in the years after Jesus died. And I learned all this yesterday when I was researching for this video. Yeah, but so apparently, if you can see this here, can we see this here? Can we get me over here? Gosh, I hope you're getting this. Where did it go? I don't know. Oh my God. Are we overloading you, poor thing? Anyways, hopefully we're still recording. BibleOdyssey.org. Apparently James and Paul have been going back and forth for quite some time. There's like this big conflict there. James is first identified in Mark 6:3 as one of the 4 brothers of Jesus. So not only did he meet him, he apparently knew him pretty well. As opposed to Paul, for unlike Paul, James had first-hand encounters with the earthly Jesus. Yet Paul's strong personal experience of the risen Lord shaped his theology and identity as an apostle to the Gentiles. And see, I'm a biblical idiot, apparently. I thought apostle was like, the 12 apostles, the people who actually knew Jesus and like hung out with him and stuff. No, apparently I was wrong about that. And Paul never met the dude that spoke with the resurrected Jesus after he passed. Right. Which, I don't know, to me sounds like he made that shit up, which might be why it's different than the stuff James had to say, right? Just a thought.
Probably no one. That is the scriptural basis for veiling. It not only has a scriptural basis, but also has a basis in tradition.
Okay, I don't give a shit about that because tradition is fucking misogynist as hell, isn't it? Why in the world, why would you ever go to that to try and figure out what you should do as a woman? Come on.
Because if you are a Catholic, as we are, you practice your religion based on scripture and tradition. And there are some who say
that's what religion is, hon.
Tradition was abolished with the new Code of Canon Law. So, Marissa, can you explain the change in the canon law to us, please?
Yes. So basically, in the 1917 Code of Canon Law,
there's Jackie Kennedy again.
The 1917 Code of Canon Law says that women should be veiled when they're in the presence of the Blessed Sacrament. But okay. And then in the 1980s, Pope John Paul II updated the canon law, and in that one, the Code of Canon Law doesn't say anything about women wearing veils.
And it doesn't say anything in that passage from Corinthians about only being veiled during Mass or only in the presence of blah, does it? No. It doesn't say that. I want to say it goes on something about, hang on. Oh yeah, I stopped reading too soon. Judge for yourselves. Is it proper for a woman to pray to God with her head uncovered? Sure. Oh wait, you didn't actually mean that. Does not the very nature of things teach you that if a man has long hair, it is a disgrace to him? Speak for yourself. But that if a woman has long hair, it is her glory. Really? I mean, shit. If we're going to get all sexist about stuff, you might as well at least say that her children are her glory. They're a lot harder to create, For long hair is given to her as a covering. Well, shit, I guess we got that whole head covering thing, covered then, don't we? Or what? If anyone wants to be contentious about this, we have no other practice, nor do the churches of God. So, if you want to talk about this, quibble about this, and argue about this, shut up. There's no argument to make. Well, that sort of makes me wonder, reminds me, aren't these girls supposed to be quiet? Speaking of Paul, didn't he say something about how women are not supposed to speak in church and something else that I don't remember what it is, and I'm not going to look that one up right now. But that one's pretty famous, right? I don't know. I guess the way that these conservative women get around this is because they're only ministering to other women, supposedly, right? And they say in the description specifically, wherever it is, tra-la-la, come on. Anyways, it does. It says in the description specifically that they're, addressed to women. Because that's my understanding. How they get around that, because women aren't supposed to preach. So what are we doing?
So according to 1983 Code of Canon Law, women are no longer required to wear veils. So now it's just a matter of preference.
Woo!
There's also a beautiful symbolism and theology behind veiling things in the Catholic faith. So, for example, some things that were veiled.
Okay. So, for example, like in the Old Testament, the Ark of the Covenant was veiled. Christ's body, when it's in the tomb, is veiled. During Mass, the tabernacle and the altar are veiled. The chalice is veiled. So the church has ever since the Old Testament, has always kind of held to the tradition of covering things that are holy.
Yeah. What is all that collection there have in common? They're all objects.
And sacred. And
it's a sign of their dignity, right?
Right.
They're objects.
It's a sign of their sacredness.
So Alice von Hildebrand, who's a wonderful philosopher,
standing there next to Pope Ratzinger.
The reason that women traditionally veil is because they have a great mystery and dignity in their femininity. And like all things that are shrouded in mystery, we veil them to protect their dignity.
What? Like, okay. Leave some mystery to life. The mystery to life, there's fun there, because you can sit and just ponder and wonder about, like, okay, fine. But, like, women are people. All right? This is the attitude that, kept male doctors in the 19th century from laying their hands on their female patients.
The third aspect of veiling that we wanted to talk about is, peripheral vision. No,
keeps you focused during Mass.
It keeps
Blinders.
The spiritual benefits. So wearing a veil is an act of reverence because you're pointing to the real presence of Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament. But it also can benefit
Eyes
you
forward,
in your
woman.
personal spiritual life by helping you focus on that reality. So for me, I have an issue with being distracted during prayer and during Mass. So wearing a veil helps me to focus in on what is happening, and it places me in the right frame of mind.
Right. Okay. So I think there's a couple things going on here. First of all, wow, that's creepy. Blinders on. Literally put your blinders, like a horse, on, so that you can only see forwards. You can only see Jesus. Wow. Yeah, that's creepy. Secondly, I do think that is a legitimate thing, though. Dress for the occasion, dress for the job you want, dress for success, right? These are all sayings because putting on, certain attire in a certain situation can put you, in a certain frame of mind. That much I will agree with. I don't think that this is the greatest application for that, though.
It reminds me that I'm in a holy place. When Moses came into the presence of the burning bush, he removed his shoes to show that was a holy place. For me, I put on my veil the moment I walk into any chapel or church where the real presence is held. And that is a sign, and that is how I acknowledge the real presence of Christ.
What? I thought God was everywhere. I thought he was omnipresent. What are you talking about? I'm not Catholic. Maybe this is, some sort of special Catholic thing. They have quite a few of them. But I've never heard of this one. And, just the way you say, recognizing the real presence when you walk in the church. I get that it's sanctified, but, don't... It's really, really silly, in my opinion.
Christ in the Eucharist, and I don't remove my veil until I've left the doors of the church. Traditionally, women who are married would wear black veils, and women who are unmarried would wear white veils. But nowadays, I've seen women wearing almost every single color of veils, and you can find any color veil.
So, it's lace, though, I guess.
I've even seen,
it's a big, fancy lace handkerchief.
And neon colors, yes.
Oh my gosh, neon colors!
I would encourage you not to make yourself the center of attention when you wear a veil. Because you have to remember that this action is between you and God, and you're doing it for him. So Marissa, because Marissa's not married,
you're doing it for God. Because some dude 2,000 years ago was like, well, duh, you're not going to cover it. You might as well shave it off. Gosh.
There's a white veil, as is traditional.
The reason why that's a good idea is it helps the guys find out who the cute Catholic single girls are.
Who the fuck is that guy? Where the fuck did he come from? Oh my god. Oh, just a little deus ex machina there. To drop in to the middle of proceedings and photobomb these two young women, trying to rationalize this to themselves and to others, to tell us what the real motivation is. Yeah, they just can't help themselves, can they?
Thank you, Adrian. There is so
Yeah,
much
thanks,
more
Adrian.
that we could say about veiling and the theology and history behind it, but we're running out of time. So if this is something that y'all are interested in, we can make another video and go more in depth. And please, if you have any questions, comment below, and we'll do our best to answer them in our next video. Thank you all so much for watching. And Marissa, thank you so much for helping me out today. Of course. Bye, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, yay, oh my gosh. So, yeah. That was a lot. Oh boy. And I don't know. I find a lot of similarities in the way that these young women talk about their faith-based leaps in logic, and the way that a lot of these young liberal, left-wing, non-binary uterus owners talk about similar things. Although, the veil, of course, is something that you can simply take off, fold, and put in a drawer. So I don't think this is getting as much attention, but I think that these women are the ones that we will. They're not going to have that mea culpa moment. They're not going to have that morning where they wake up and just realize, what have I done to myself? Probably. They're not physically mutilating themselves, so they're not getting as much attention. They're mentally mutilating themselves, though. They're ablating parts of their personality just as much. Okay. And it's kind of an inverted version of, like, instead of navel gazing and obsessing over, oh, how do I feel today? What gender do I feel today? It's, what does God want for me today? It's taking that same, like, just obsession with what's in it for me today and just placing it outside of yourself instead of putting it inside of yourself. And I think it's an equally unhealthy approach to life. And I think that it stunts them in a similar way, mentally and emotionally. And these girls, they don't even know what they're doing. They don't and it's just a piece of lace on their hair. So, like, who cares, right? But wow. No, in ancient Greece, they wore the big, coverings at what, it was totally common in Athens, apparently. And they were considered to be an extension of their father's or their husband's house. Like, you literally could not go through the street without taking part of your patriarch's house with you for protection, from other men. What is that? What kind of nonsense is that? And that's what this harkens back to, because no one is pressuring men to do stuff like this, are they? Not that I've seen. Anyway, I have 2 sons. And we live in a pretty conservative area. I haven't seen anything like this. We don't live in a Catholic area. We have Baptists here. Woo. And as far as Christians go, a lot of the times, if I had to pick somebody to hang out with who I thought was going to be chill, it would probably be a Catholic over a lot of other shades of faith, just because they've been around for so long that they have had to accept in their culture that you have to have some kind of flexibility to stick around, which is nice in its way. But I really, so that actually makes this even worse. It's very frightening that young Catholics are going this way. That church has been on a liberalizing bent for, like they were saying, decades and decades. And these are young American women. I don't give a shit if they're Republicans. That's not the point. Traditionally, I mean, you saw Jackie Kennedy. She was married to John F. Kennedy, who you may have heard of. He was a famous Democrat, and he didn't get to do most of what he wanted to do, I think. But that's another story. Traditionally, Catholics are Democrats. Again, going back decades. So they are theoretically leftists leaning politically. But it doesn't matter. Okay, these same kinds of ideas of very, very just strongly broadcasting to these young women that they should do X, Y, and Z in order to woman correctly. That's the problem. This is another example of it. And this is a particularly pernicious one, I think, because it doesn't make any more sense than the wokest stuff. But it's older, so it feels like it has a lot more authority. And it's really not getting any attention. I think we should give it more attention. I think these girls could benefit from, I don't know, any other perspective. So that's why we went ahead and did this today. Thank you for staying with me and slogging through that. Excuse me, like the video if you enjoyed this or found it, informative in some way, and subscribe to the channel for more stuff like this. And I'm going to go dig some up right now. I'll see you around soon, real soon. Bye-bye.